Hi there, this is Heather, Shutterbug 101. Today we'll be going over the Nikon A1000 point and shoot camera and all the buttons, doors, and menus on it. Let's get started. The Nikon A1000 point and shoot camera has a 1/2-inch 16 megapixel sensor, 35 times zoom, and a tilting touchscreen to help you achieve a different perspective with your photographs. This camera also has a viewfinder for tough lighting situations and manual modes for more control. The A1000 also has 4K video options and Wi-Fi for transferring your images to a smart device or using your smart device as a remote control. Today we will be going over the different buttons, doors, and menus to help you become more familiar with this camera model. Going over the Nikon A1000. I found that when shooting this camera, it's a good general camera to have. I've seen better quality in other viewfinders. I did find that when taking pictures with this camera, the zoom would freeze up a little bit from time to time. But overall, if you just generally like to take pictures with your family, you like to go on trips to the zoo, you know, that sort of thing where you just want something available, this is a really good quality and it gives you good all-around settings. Very simple, easy to use, and has a fantastic zoom to it. 35 times, not too shabby. As you can see here, we do have a couple buttons on the front of this camera. We do have a function button. At the moment, I don't think this one is assigned to anything, but you can assign it in the menu, which we will go over. Here we do have your zoom switch, so you can either zoom here on the side of the lens, or you can zoom up here by the shutter button, depending on how you want to do that. You also have this button here, which I believe is when you have it set to a certain zoom and you turn it off, you can jump right back to that zoom back and forth. If you had a specific length that you really liked, it was just going to go there when you hit this button here. It's kind of like a shortcut button for that. Other than that, that's everything on the front of the camera. Nice grip here. On the side of the camera here, we do have a little door. We open that up. Here is going to be our HDMI port, which of course you'll use this to connect it to a television screen to show a slideshow of a trip or something like that. We do have a USB port here, so if you wanted to connect the camera straight to your computer, you can transfer images, you can check for firmware upgrades, that sort of thing. As far as I know, Nikon doesn't do a ton of firmware upgrades on their point and shoots, but you know, check every now and then. You never know. Let's say maybe once a year. You know, just check to see if it's up to date, which we'll go over that in the menu as well. On this side of the camera, you can see that we don't have any doors, but it does indicate that this camera has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which is kind of cool. At the bottom of the camera, we have our universal screw mount for our tripod. So, you know, something to keep in mind there. It is kind of interesting that it's a little off-center, but they determined that this is the proper balance point for this camera, so that's kind of interesting. This is going to be our speaker where we're going to hear any video or anything that we've taken come out from. We have our little door here, so if we move this switch this way, it's going to spring right open. We have our battery and our SD card slot, which is spring-loaded. Do not pry your card out. You always want to push down to take it out because of that spring, and then close the door, switch the switch, and it stays closed. Going to the top of the camera here, we have our pop-up flash here, which is going to be controlled by this switch. So you just push that down if you don't need it anymore. We have our mode dial here, which is right by our on and off switch, which you're just going to push down to access here. Now the green mode is going to be our auto mode. So this is going to let the camera take full control. You have no control whatsoever. except for the touch screen, maybe where you want to focus, that sort of thing. P mode is going to be your program mode. This is going to be the first step off of auto. It'll allow you to change your aperture or shutter speed accordingly, your autofocus settings, your exposure, anything like that. Gives you a little bit more control over your images, and then the camera figures everything else out for you, so you still get something that's properly exposed. You have your S mode, which is going to be shutter speed. This is going to control how much light you let into the camera for a certain amount of time. This is going to be to capture motion or show motion. You have A for aperture, not auto, something that's commonly misconstrued. Aperture is going to control how much light you let in. That's going to be for low light environments. Also, the lower the number, the blurrier the background, higher the number, the more sharpness throughout, so it's something to consider as well. And then of course you have full manual mode, which is you taking full control, which is not something I recommend if you're an auto shooter. So just knowing that it's there, you know, you have that available. Now we do have our little film strip here, which is our movie mode. Now you don't have to be in movie mode in order to do a video. You can just be in your auto, your P, your S, your A. You can be in any of those modes, and all you have to do is push the red button here to start recording, push it again to stop recording. Very, very easy. This just gives you more ability to see like different mic levels and you know, change certain frame rates and whatnot. All right, we have our scene mode, which if we access our scene mode here, our scene mode is going to be a way of it having like intelligent auto almost. So if you have it pointed at a person, it's going to indicate, hey, I think there's a person there. Let me put it into portrait mode. If you have it really close up to something, it's going to kick into macro mode, that sort of thing. And then of course we have our creative mode here. Now our creative mode, if we get back to the screen, is going to give you a different filter effect. So anything from like, you know, bleach to pure to denim to sepia, different filters, different black and whites, that sort of thing. It's just going to give you a different sort of effect. We're going to go over the rest of the settings in P mode because in auto mode, some things might be grayed out because the camera has full control, whereas you do not have control. So P mode will show us all the options, just so you're aware. We have our shutter button here, which if you push halfway down, it's going to focus. If you push all the way down, it's going to take a picture. We have our zoom here, so if you move to T, it's going to do zoom out, telephoto. Go to W, it's going to make it wide angle again, zoom all the way back out. And then this wheel here is going to adjust certain settings. So as you can see here, it's moving these numbers around. This is our shutter speed. The F number is our aperture. So you want to focus on one of those. So if you want to turn aperture all the way up to get more sharpness, it's going to be F8 versus a blurry background. 3.4 is the lowest this will go. Versus if you were focused on, I want to get the fastest, it's going to be 1/30th of a second, versus, let's see, if you put it to F8, it's 1/6 of a second, so naturally you want to open that up to let more light in. Okay, going to the back of the camera here. So we do have our fancy viewfinder. Right now the sensor is set on, so if we hit the sensor, the picture's automatically going to go into the viewfinder here. You take your face away, it goes right back to the back screen. We do have a viewfinder button here, so if we were to hit this, it's going to go straight to the viewfinder. You hit it again, it's going to go to the back screen, so you kind of have an either or option depending on what you want to do. We have already gone over our flash switch. We have our autofocus or auto exposure lock. So if you find something that is properly lit, for example, if we were to go off of my hand here versus the mat, you hit that button, my hand's not really going to be in focus. It's going to be locked on back at the mat here. So something to keep in mind of just like what that does. It'll focus on either the lighting or the focusing. We've already gone over our red button, so that's good. We have our play button, which is going to go over any pictures in the camera, which at the moment I don't have an SD card in there, so nothing there. Also, your universal exit button to get back to shooting mode is going to be your shutter button here. Press halfway down. Here we do have a wheel for other adjustments. Otherwise, you can push down on the wheel itself. So if we push up on this, it's actually going to give us settings to our flash, which does need to be popped up in order to change those settings. So you can do force flash on, red eye, anything there. And if you don't want it at all, you just put the flash back down. If you go to the right, that's going to give us options to change like our brightness and darkness, different colors, our warmth, that sort of thing there. So it kind of ties into our white balance a little bit. If you push down, it's going to change our autofocus. So you have regular autofocus, you have macro autofocus, and then you have manual focus. That's how you're going to access that. And then if you push to the left, that's going to be our timer options here. If we push OK, it's going to just be our confirmation button. The trash can button is going to be to throw away any pictures from our playback mode. If some came out blurry, that sort of thing. Now this camera does have the ability to have a touch shutter, which just means if I touch the screen here, it's going to take a picture wherever I wanted it to focus right away. So you do have that option. So if we go to play and I wanted to delete this, I'm going to delete this current image because I don't want it on there. There we go. We also have this nice tilt screen available. So it does allow you to flip out or flip down to get some good pictures. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and go into our menu here. So our menu is going to be fairly simple in this camera, nothing too complicated. Not much that you'll really have to change. You can change your image quality, which you can change it to fine JPEG, you can change it to RAW, or RAW and JPEG. If you're gonna shoot in JPEG, I would definitely do it in fine. Do image size, probably want the biggest available. Your white balance, I'd keep it in auto. Your metering, where it's taking the light from, I like center weighted personally, that's just me. That way whatever's in the center is going to be properly lit, like my camera here. If I have it set off to the side, you'll see that everything gets a little bit darker because the screen is nice and bright. So that's something there. You have your drive here, so you can do a single shot, or you can do like continuous high, where it takes pictures at so many frames per second. ISO sensitivity, I would keep it on auto personally. That way you don't have to worry about it, but it's essentially sensitivity to light. Exposure bracketing, if you want to do bracketing. Your autofocus area mode, where you wanted it to autofocus. Autofocus mode, I like the pre-autofocus myself. Otherwise you do full-time autofocus, which is just continually trying to find a focus point, or single autofocus. Once it finds an autofocus point, it locks on. You have noise reduction filter, and you also have manual exposure preview. Then of course we have our movie options, which just allows you to change if you want 4K or HD video, what you want your focus mode to be on video, the wind noise reduction, which I would personally have that on, considering that you never know what you're going to come across here. And your frame rate as well, like the 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second. Your network menu, which controls your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth, so something to keep in mind there. So you can choose your connection, connect to your smartphone, connection to a remote. And then of course we have our setup menu here, which digital zoom, keep it off. It's just going to distort your images. You have your auto exposure, autofocus lock button, which is right up here, what you want that to be. Auto off, so if you're not doing anything on the camera for a certain amount of time, it'll just turn itself off to save you battery. Format memory. Something that's definitely something I want to go over. A lot of people don't know about formatting. Formatting is extremely important. What formatting does is, say when you're about to go on vacation and you want to clear out your card, instead of deleting it with the trash can button, you want to make sure that you format it instead. What the trash can button does is it essentially hides your photo. It still has the data and just throws it into a recycling bin that you can't see. So it gives the illusion that nothing's there, but it's still there. And over so much time of just filling that recycling bin, pictures can corrupt, it can get a virus, it just eats away future images. So by formatting, it permanently erases any pictures that you have and resets it to how you purchased it. So definitely something to keep in mind, just maybe once a month, that sort of thing. If you are ready to clear out your card, you've made sure your pictures are backed up to an external source and they're nice and safe. And of course you have your language, you know, time, location, copyright, you know, whatever. And then if you're having a problem, you don't know what the camera's doing, you don't know what the heck you did by playing with your settings, you can go reset all and just reset it to how you purchased it. You want your touchscreen on or off, and then your firmware version to check if it's up to date. That's pretty much it. That's this camera. It's a really simple camera. It's a lot of fun to play with. It's great for the person that, you know, wants good quality zoom, wants something more than their smartphone, you know, to still get great images, and it's pretty pocket and purse friendly. So if you guys have any questions, please leave me a comment below. If you have another camera that you would like me to do next, I will add it to my list. Until then, keep your eye out for inspiration, Shutterbugs. Bye!